Welcome to In Focus SoCal. I'm Tanya McCrae. It's been nearly 2 years since Karen Bass was sworn in as the 43rd mayor of Los Angeles. As her first act in office in 2022, she declared a state of emergency on homelessness. As a result, 21,000 Angelenos were taken off of the street, but the work isn't done yet. I'm here in City Hall with the mayor. It is a pleasure to see you again in person and to be here in City Hall with you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for having me on again.
Since your first day in office, you have been laser focused on dealing with the homelessness crisis. You declared an emergency on the homelessness crisis. And you've been really focused on a lot of initiatives to get people inside. There were some key results from the 2024 Greater Los Angeles homeless count. What are some of the highlights?
Well, I think the most important takeaway were the numbers, which is for the first time, because every year homelessness was going up and up. This is the first time we saw a reduction in many, many years. And it was a big reduction, 10% of street homelessness. Now the numbers that went up were sheltered individuals. That is a good thing.
Right, you got them off the street and inside.
Exactly, and then of course the ultimate goal is to get people into permanent housing. And so I feel like we have a good trajectory going and we need to continue it. I think the other most important thing that we learned is that one, people will leave the streets because a lot of Angelenos think that once someone is in a tent that they will never leave it. People are more than willing to leave the tents. And we also realize that there's a lot of policies, old policies that have been on the books forever that were actually keeping people unhoused.
What are some of the policies? I mean, that's one of the issues that you've really been focused on, is homelessness is multi-layered.
Exactly.
And one of the key ways of dealing with all of those different layers is to get rid of outdated policies that are either causing people to be homeless or barriers to getting them inside. Can you talk more about that?
One, the Housing and Urban Development Department of the federal government required that an individual prove their income in order to get housed. Well, if you've been on the street for years and you have no income, how do you prove nothing? So after many months, we were able to get HUD to give waivers so that we will presume that if you're on the street, that you're eligible, that you actually are poor. Another one victory that we're celebrating right now is with veterans homelessness. Do you know that if a veteran was unhoused and took benefits, we counted those benefits as income and then told the veteran, well, you make too much money, so we can't give you this voucher. So we literally have empty beds in the city for veterans who were kept on the street because of this policy. So now I'm working on a national level, co-chairing the National Task Force on Homelessness for the U.S. Conference of Mayors. We took 50 mayors to the White House, to the Senate, and to the House, and after many, many months, we actually got the federal government to change that rule. So now we have vouchers, we have veterans, and we're going to begin to get more veterans housed.
And you recently hosted the acting secretary of HUD, Adrian Todman, here in Los Angeles to highlight progress on that. Can you talk a little bit more about this?
Absolutely, and the policies exist everywhere. Well, HUD has been a wonderful partner. Aside from bringing us the financial resources we need, they've also been willing to look at these policies, because I think a lot of people didn't realize that these were actual barriers to us getting people housed. And so the presumptive eligibility in terms of income, but also we required that you have a government ID. Well, if you have no address, how about house the individual so they will have an address? So the main policy accomplishment was presumptive eligibility and getting the federal government to adopt that. And so after many months, we were able to do that. So while we're working to get people off the street, we have to change and transform the system at the same time. There's lots of pieces of the system that are broken on the county and the city level. So we're working to address those. We're working to change the policies on a federal and a state level that keep people unhoused. All of that has to go on at the same time.
Tent encampments have come down in every council district.
Yes.
How are you collaborating with all of the different council members to facilitate all of that happening?
Well, actually,
every area of the city is very different.
The collaboration, not just with the council, but with the county, with the state elected officials, as well as with the federal officials, but most personally with members of the city council, we collectively decide which encampments we are going to go after to house people. And part of it is based on the rooms. So making sure that we have enough rooms to actually house people in. But now we're beginning to change the system and look for new ways. So congregate housing is something that individuals on the street resisted in the past. But the market has produced new and more innovative ways of housing people in a congregate shelter. So we're looking at that as a model that would be less expensive.
Crime and safety on metro buses and trains has been a big issue
Yes.
this year. You have some new public safety protocols that are going into the effect over the next few years. Can you
Right.
talk about some of those?
Sure. Well, initially when we saw the spike in crime, I was chairing Metro at the time. And so I called for an increased presence of law enforcement. One of our challenges with Metro, though, is that we have 3 different law enforcement agencies. So getting them all to move at the same time was challenging, but we did it. We also came up with barriers for the driver. So the plastic that covers where the driver is was absolutely critical a couple of weeks ago when that bus was hijacked. That's why the driver was able to call 911 to alert someone that he was in trouble.
And that worked. People saw
work.
the 911 on the front of the bus, right?
Right. He was able to call 911 as well as to have that message on the front of the bus. But in addition, we are piloting software that would be able to detect if someone was coming in with a weapon. So there's a lot of ways that we're looking at dealing with crime on Metro. We want people to use public transportation. They're not going to use it if they don't feel safe. But I do have to tell you that we've had an absolute increase in ridership. We reached the point a couple of weeks ago of 1 million passengers a day. And that is remarkable. So even though there are problems, people are continuing to increase their ridership.
After the break, the mayor talks about her choice of Jim McDonald to be the new chief of the LAPD and how the city is already gearing up to host the 2026 World Cup and 2028 Summer Olympics. We'll be right back. You recently selected Jim McDonald to serve as the new chief of the LAPD.
Yes.
Why was he the best leader for this job?
Well, if you just think about what our city is facing, number one, what we just talked about, crime, we talked about homelessness. We know that our city is getting ready to invite the world multiple times. Everybody talks about 2028. I'm focused on 2026. When we have the World Cup in Los Angeles that is going to last for 40 days. We needed an individual who could, one, address the internal issues that the police department has, and their number one issue is morale. So we need to change a lot of things internal, but we also need to get our city ready to welcome guests, and we need to increase safety. So when I look at Jim McDonald's background, first of all, serving in LAPD for 29 years, rising to the number 2 in the department, then leaving and going to Long Beach, becoming the chief of police in the city of Long Beach, and then running for sheriff. Now, our county is the largest county in the country. So you have somebody who has international, national, and local experience. That's the type of leader we need. Someone who can transform the department internally and prepare the department and prepare us to make sure that these games will be safe. The other thing that I think is really good about future Chief McDonald is he has a very close relationship with Sheriff Luna. So one of the themes of my administration has been collaboration, locking arms, everybody being on the same page. And we can say comfortably that when he is confirmed, we will have unity in terms of law enforcement in our entire region.
Los Angeles is hosting the next Summer Olympics, 44 years since the last time it was here in 1984. And you have the goal of making sure that spectators can go to every venue using public transportation.
Yes.
And in fact, you are talking about bringing in thousands of buses
That's
from
right.
all over the country to do that. What needs to be done over the next few years in order to make that plan feasible?
Well, let me say a couple of things. First, one, we will be one of 3 cities in history to have the Olympics 3 times, 32, 84, and 28.
Ooh, LA.
And then even when we had the Olympics in 84, we didn't have the Paralympics. So this will be the first time we have the Olympics and the Paralympics. We have a lot to do in this city to get ready. First of all, what we were just talking about in terms of increasing safety and addressing homelessness. We need the city to be much cleaner, and I'm going to call on all Angelenos to participate in that, especially in 2025, getting our house in order. So there's a lot of things that we have to do to prepare for the Games.
You and city council members hosted a delegation of
Yes.
Paris leaders that came here in October to give local leaders here in LA some insights after having hosted both the Olympics and the Paralympic Games. What were some of the key takeaways from that summit?
Well, first of all, let me tell you how that started, because the mayor of Paris was just amazing to the city of Los Angeles. And when I went in March, I was so impressed with her willingness and her openness to share experiences that I asked her somewhat facetiously, when you are done with the Olympics, could you send us your staff? Never really expecting her to say yes. Well, she said yes, and she sent an entire delegation.
Wow.
So it was an opportunity for city staff to drill down on the things that are needed. But it was also an opportunity to involve the other cities that will have venues. So again, with our consistent theme of collaborating, you know, when the Games come to our region, the city of Carson and Inglewood and Pasadena and Santa Monica are all involved. So we need everybody to be on the same page. So key takeaway, begin early, start consistently now, and make sure that you have a vision that will move you forward in terms of what you want to have as your outcome. So our theme is Games for All. We want the Olympics to benefit all of Los Angeles. We want guests to come here and not just go to the traditional tourist sites, but to go to South LA and East LA and the Valley and all of our neighborhoods.
You recently launched a new program, Procure LA, that's going to create a pipeline for local businesses to be prepared to win opportunities to secure contracts for
Right.
upcoming big events. This has been a big deal. Can you talk about that?
Sure. When we have all of these visitors coming for these multiple events, we want to lift up especially our small business community. We know that the majority employer in Los Angeles are small businesses, and so this is an opportunity for many, many to benefit. So under the leadership of Deputy Mayor Rachel Freeman, we had a small business summit a couple of weeks ago. Over 1,500 businesses participated. And essentially what Procure LA does is to help these businesses be ready, get ready in terms of getting their financials together, getting their organization together, making sure their financing is in place so that when contracts do become available, when we spread the Games all over the region, they will be ready to apply for contracts.
You recently went to Mexico City
Yes.
for the swearing-in ceremony and the inauguration of President Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo. She is the first woman president
Yes.
in Mexico. You went there to highlight the strong relationship between Los Angeles and Mexico. What are your hopes in continuing to strengthen that connection?
Well, first of all, it was wonderful meeting her last year when she was here campaigning. And she told me that if she was successful, she wanted me to come. And I went. And anything that we can do to strengthen ties between our two countries, and for us, between our two cities, really, really is a benefit to us. And so it was wonderful to participate in the ceremony. I'm very excited about her leadership, and I know that we will have a very strong tie between our two countries and our two cities.
You recently signed an executive directive to continue building LA's infrastructure, streets, parks, et cetera. Can you talk about some of those projects?
Sure. You know, one of the challenges we have in our city is that we don't have a long-term strategic plan to improve our infrastructure, to strengthen our infrastructure. And there's examples of it everywhere around the city. So now with a short-term goal of what do we need to do to prepare for all of the games coming to town, but also developing long-term strategy. It's great. How do we get our sidewalks fixed? How do we get our trees trimmed? All of the city services. How do we deal with the infrastructure? So that's the point of the executive directive, to bring together the appropriate city departments to establish that collaboration and that experience of working together and coming up with long-term plans. That's the only way you'll ever be able to finance anything, is if you think about it long-term.
Still ahead on In Focus SoCal, Mayor Bass talks about what she enjoys most about being back in her hometown of LA full-time. Stay with us. You have been in office now almost 2 years. What have been some of the biggest or unique challenges for you to go from your previous role, and where you were going to DC all the time and even had your own place there, to coming back to Los Angeles and dealing with the local infrastructure and local politics and just the issues of people here?
Well, you know what? It has been an incredible experience over these 2 years, and I have found that it has been extremely helpful to me to have served on a state and a federal level, because I have the deep relationships in both places, and being able to call on state or federal partners has been very rewarding. I love the idea of working on a local level. One, it's instant gratification. Now, I loved Congress too, because you could think long term. You could plan and say, I want to change this whole system, and you know you're going to be there for a long time. But here, this is where the rubber meets the road. Mm-hmm. And so you want to make sure that you can bring about change that people can experience, which is why it was so important to me to focus on street homelessness, because people needed to physically see a difference. Now, I wish we would have been able to deal with all of the encampments, but the point is that we've shown a way to deal with them. And in many, many neighborhoods around the city, you can talk to business owners, you can talk to students and parents, you can talk to neighborhood leaders who will tell you the difference in the quality of life. You can talk to the police department and they will tell you how they don't have to go to this corner anymore because it's not a problem. You can talk to the fire department and they'll tell you that we don't have fires over here anymore because the encampment has been resolved. So it was just important to me to make an immediate difference in the lives of Angelenos. We have so much more to do, but at least we've taken some very concrete, visible, tangible results.
I would imagine one of the most gratifying parts of being back home, because this is your hometown,
yes,
is you get to see your grandchildren.
Yes, that's right.
On a regular basis. Tell me what that's been like for you.
Well, that has been very nice. And of course, since the time I've been in office, I have a new grandchild.
Yes!
6 months
Congratulations.
old. Little Oliver.
Congratulations.
Yes.
What's that been like to be able to really be a part of their lives?
Well, it's been very, very nice. And the day-to-day during the campaign, and also even now that I'm in office, the 2 boys, the older ones, love to come to work with me. They like to be on the campaign trail with me. And so it's been a very, very good experience.
What has been most rewarding overall in the last 2 years in your role as mayor, and what are you really eager to accomplish before this position terms out?
Well, hands down, it's going out with the outreach team, talking to people intense, and telling them no one has to live like this, and seeing the joy on their face when they ask you simple questions like, am I going to be able to take a shower whenever I want? And so making a concrete difference in people's lives on that day is extremely rewarding. And what I hope that we will accomplish, not I hope, I am determined that we will accomplish transforming the system that addresses homelessness, preventing homelessness in the first place, and then lifting up our small business sector so people can have the jobs so that they can be able to financially sustain themselves. Our city has become virtually unaffordable. I would love to be able to make a tangible difference in that area. Bringing the cost of housing down, bringing the accessibility and availability of jobs up.
Mayor Bass, I always appreciate my time with you. Thank you so much for talking to me today about so many issues that are important not just to you, but to Angelenos from one end of this city to the other. I appreciate your passion, and as a hometown woman, I know these things are as important to you as they are to our viewers. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you again for the opportunity.